Hey guys, we're doing shocks today on our shock truck, our '01 Ford Ranger. This is the second time I'm actually trying to record this. The first time I had started on the front on the driver's side and we did measurements and everything because I was curious about ride height, how much I would gain from changing the shocks. These shocks have been on this truck since brand new, so these are 22 years old, 2001. So truck's been bouncing a little bit lately, so I decided since I'm getting it trip ready, I was go ahead and change the shocks out on it, and I got the front one done. It was a little bit of a chore. I deleted all that footage, so we have no measurements. So what we're doing today is we're going to do the passenger side, since I already did the driver's side. The reason I took the bed off is because it's easier to do it with the bed off. You can do it with the bed on, but let me show you what you got going on for you if you try to do it with the bed on. This upper nut, this bushing right here is a real pain to get on. You gotta make sure you don't hit your purge canister. So it's easier to do it with the bed off. That way you can get right to the bolt and be able to slide this on and off. To get the bed off, you've got 6 bolts. They're held in by J-clips. That's what these are called, J-clips. There's 4 on the back and 2 on the front. I'll show you where they're at in relation to the bed, because here's the bed right here. So there's your 2 on the back on each side, then the 2 up in the front corners right there. You don't have to take your lights apart. There's this wire right here. You just unplug that wire and you can take the whole thing up. I'm used to doing it on my 89, and on the 89 you got to pull the taillights out. It doesn't have a connector on the back you can unplug. The connector for the taillights lives right here. So here's your frame. Here's your connector for your taillights right here. An interesting thing to note, if you wanted to do tricolor, which are the 3, the red, amber, and white taillights, all you have to do is off the donor truck, get this clip, get the wiring harness off the bottom of the bed and the tail light lenses, and you can swap it out, because we're going to do a video where I swap mine out from single red to tricolor, because I prefer the tricolor lights over the singles anyway, because where I live people can't tell if you're turning or not. Yeah, as you can see, we got a little bit of rust here we got to work on today. We're going to vacuum out all that rust from this center cross member right here. We've got a hose on the way for the filler neck, because that one is starting to come apart. And those hoses, when they start to degrade like that, they will cause emissions issues, such as your hose sits up like this in your truck. But what happens is, because this hose has a bit of degrading to it, anytime a hose comes off on your fingers, you want to replace it. That's just a standard rule of thumb. I'm going to change this vent hose too when I go get this one. I'm going to take this one off. I think this is 5/8 heater hose, and I'm going to get a piece of line. I'm going to redo this one too, because this is your vent tube, so that you can put gas in your truck and not have it back flush up into the filler neck. Anyway, what this will do is this will collapse in on itself, creating a vacuum, which it'll translate to the tank as shoving more gas into your engine, which, if to put it in different terms, if you had like a carbureted engine, it would flood your engine out. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to put some unnecessary wear on your fuel injectors. It's going to cause issues with your throttle body working right. If you're pulling a trailer or you've got a heavy load in your truck, the added fuel will actually cause problems with towing. And this thing's a gutless wonder, so I'm doing everything I can. That's why I'm changing the shocks. I'm thinking maybe because the shocks are bad, the weight's too much on the back of the truck, because it's not translating all the way through the truck into the trailer, and it's creating a heavier load on the truck. So doing a few things to try to make this trip a little bit better. We're going to New York next couple weeks, so there won't be any videos for the first week of August because I'll be in New York. However, I'm going to take my tripod with me, and I'm going to try to get you guys some Dakota videos. So anyway, let's get to our project today. We're going to do the shocks on my truck. We've got a bolt down at the bottom. That's a 15 with an 18 millimeter nut. Top nut's an 18 millimeter. And the only issue we got on this side that we might have to contend with is the exhaust. But I don't foresee that as being a problem. So we'll get this bolt broke loose. It's got a little bit of scaling on it. That'll come off when you take the nut loose. Use a wrench or a ratchet when you take that loose. I've heard of horror stories if you use like a impact on it. Sometimes it screws the threads up and you have the unfortunate incident of that. Use a lot of spray. We're going to spray the living crap out of those today. And yeah, hopefully this will go better than the driver's side did. The driver's side was a damn disaster. Oh my good. I'm not even going to go into that because that's a video all of its own. So, by the way, if you see me with a towel around my neck, don't think nothing of it. It is completely humid as crap out today. There is no wind to speak of. There's storms all around me, but none of them in my area. And so, yeah, let's get started. We're going to start by taking that top nut off. So I'm going to get it sprayed real quick with our spray. Get that all sprayed real good like that, and then we'll take our spray with us to the other side. You want to grab your favorite ratchet. Of course, this isn't my favorite ratchet, it's just the one I happen to have with me. So you want to go ahead and get this broke loose. These normally come out pretty good. It's the bottom one that you usually have to fight. See, this one's coming apart pretty easy. We're going to do something a little different on this side that we didn't do on the other side, which is we're going to clean it up a little bit on this stud right here. See, when you get down towards the end, you want to kind of spin the nut back on. And what this is going to do is this is going to clean that scaling up on that end of that stud. See all that crap coming off of there? That's why you're rocking your bolt back and forth, and it's just build up rust from driving on the road. So our area where I'm at, we don't get a whole lot of salt on the road. Usually they do sand around here, but even still, you're gonna have issues with that from time to time. So just something you gotta live with. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the bottom bolt out. We're going to spray the bottom bolt too. Pay attention to the nuts too, because these nuts are completely different. Your top nut has a little bit of a crown to it, okay? The bottom nut is completely flat, like a flat nut. And it's easy to get them confused because they're both the same size, so they're interchangeable. But you don't want to interchange these nuts because, oh, that's funny, by the way. You don't want to interchange them because you might come across some unforeseen issues. All right, so we're going to take our wrench, our 18 millimeter wrench, we're going to put it down here on the nut. Okay, and then we're going to take our ratchet. We'll take our ratchet and put the right size socket on it. And things you got to deal with. All right, so we're going to take our socket here, down on here. Grab your wrench with one hand. See if we can get this nut to break loose. Once you get it broke loose, go ahead and spin it out. Now, one thing I showed in the video that you'll never see because I deleted it is on the driver's side, if you want to find a spot like the leaf spring or something to hold your hand against with your stationary tool, you can definitely do that. You can hold it up against the axle if you want to, or the leaf spring, or whatever you want. I was even at one point holding it up against the old shock, like what I'm doing here. And all you're doing is, it's just for stability. You want to, when you get down towards the end of your bolt, you want to switch it back the other way and then flip it back. And what you're doing is you're cleaning up the threads on the end of your bolt, so when you put it back together, it's not going to fight you. Also, if you choose the option and you do take the bed off the truck, you're going to need an assistant. And if you have mud flaps like I have on my bed, you want to put the end of the bed up on some ramps or some cinder blocks or whatever you have, because if those get broke, you can't replace them. They don't make them anymore. Pull your bolt out of the bottom like that. This is what I do. I just do it like that. And then if you have the bed off, you can set your bolt down on your leaf spring. And then we're going to get the top out. Bottom just falls out. See how much, look at that. You see that? That could be our whole problem right there, and you know, we're just now figuring it out. All right, so up here, you can rock this off like this. Just kind of rock it back and forth like that. Don't worry if it runs into anything. That's why you greased it up. All right, so right in here we got a little bit of scaling and a little bit of rust and issues like that. So I'm gonna go look in my sandpaper, see if I have something I can clean that up with. And then I'll show you the shocks we're using for this project, because we're using a new brand of shocks that I've never heard of before. And you'll get to see them in just a minute. Okay, I found a sanding block. I didn't find my Scotch-Brite that I usually use on stuff like this, but I'm going to bring you around here so you can see what it looks like. It's kind of rough. You'll see it here in a minute. Yeah, here's our stud right here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can get a better look at it. There we go. See, it's just got scaling on it and everything from it being 21 years old. Alright, so I got a scuff pad. Just kind of clean it up a little bit. And get underneath it like this. Zoom back a little bit more so you can see what we're doing here. There we go. You don't have to get all the scaling off, you just got to get it to where it's slightly level, because you're also pulling bits of rubber off of this thing too from it sitting on here for so long. That's what some of that black stuff is. It's bits of rubber. I don't know what grit this is, but seems to be doing the job, so that's all that matters to me. And then I got a blue shop towel in my hand that you can't see yet. I'm going to use that to wipe this pin off. If you want to get in here on the threads, you can. Just do it very carefully. Yeah, see that? Just clean that all up like that. Do the best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. See that? Feels really good now. We'll spray that with some PB Blaster before we put the new shock on. So I'm gonna move you to the table at this train pass, and then I'm gonna go over the new shocks to you. All right, we're at our table. And I thought the train had passed, but I guess not. This is a part number we're using. Yep, that does say Master Pro on it. Question I had is, when did they start making shocks? But apparently they started doing this a little bit ago. This is a brand new product that I'm going to give it a shot. It looks like a Monroe-Matic, and that's usually what I put on my trucks, are Monroe-Matics, because OEM shocks are extremely expensive. I'd put Motorcraft back on this truck, but they are very pricey. We're talking like 83 bucks a shock. So, you know, we're doing this on a budget, because Ranger Auto, we do things on a budget. So this is a Master Pro shock. It's got the part number engraved into the bottom of it. It's nitrogen filled, which is a fancy way of saying it's a gas shock. It's got this strap wrapped around it. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to it when the time's right. So it's got the proper bushings on the top, proper bolt in on the bottom. It's practically idiot proof. So we'll see how well it works. Let's go ahead and put this on the truck. We're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna spray the inside. Get this camera to function here. We're gonna spray the inside of the bushing right here, and we're gonna spray that pin. And then that will make it a whole lot easier for us to install this. Because if you try to install this dry, you are going to fight it for a very long time. And you're going to hate life when you realize you can't get it on there anymore. Now, one other thing you want to notice is whether or not the bushing is equal, like it is on this one, or if there's more sticking out one way than the other. On some trucks, you're going to have a bushing that's going to stick out a little bit further towards the one side. Based on how the old shock comes off the truck, you're going to have to put it back on that way. So like if this part here was sticking out like that, and it was on the front, then it's going to go back on the front when you put the shock on. If it's equal on both sides and it doesn't say this side out anywhere on the shock, it can go on either direction. So usually when I put these on, I like to have it with the facing out. Like the original shocks, the Motorcraft shocks, they had the Motorcraft on the back with the part number. So anyway, enough jabber jobbing. Oh, the other thing you want to notice too is whether or not it's got a flat bushing or a coned bushing. This has a coned bushing on it. The OEM had a flat bushing, so you might notice a little bit of pressing out against the nut when we go to put it on there. That is normal, and it does not deform the bushing in any way. So let's get this thing on there. So like I said, we're going to start off by spraying our pin. Get that thing goosed up real good. If you accidentally get some on your exhaust, don't worry, it'll stink for a few minutes when you start your truck up, but don't worry about it. You want to spray the living crap out of this rubber bushing, because if you don't, you will never get this thing on. Ask me how I know. Actually don't. All right, so I'm gonna set your shock down, and we're gonna just pushing on it while rocking it back and forth. And that gets the shock on. See, this is so much better to try this with the bed off than with the bed on, because you can't rock it very well with the bed on. When you get it down to where you can get your nut on it, go ahead and get your nut on it and run your nut down, but don't tighten it up. Don't tighten it up until you're at the end, because you need this to be able to flex to get the bottom bolt in. The bottom bolt's going to be the challenging part. So we're going to just run this nut down until the shock's on all the way back, like right there. Then you want to loosen it up a little bit to where you have a small gap between the flat on the rubber and the flat on the washer. And you just want to leave it there. Your top part's done. Then you want to switch back over. You don't have to grease the bottom one because it has a metal spacer inside. But what you might want to do, especially if you had problems getting your bolt out, if you got a rusted bolt like that, you want to go ahead and get some spray on that. Just kind of helps you out a little bit. All right, now we're going to talk about this white thing here. This white thing's here because if you let that sucker go, it's going to just decompress. Okay, so you want to have your bolt ready. And this is why you want that loose, because you're going to aim this over here, and then when you get it aimed where you want it, don't worry about the brake line right here. It'll accommodate itself appropriately after I put it back inside its holder. I don't know how that came out of there. That's the parking brake cable, by the way. All right, so You're going to aim this where you want it. Then you can either pull it from the back here like this, or it's got this connector on the back. And you can drop your bolt on the ground. You can either pull it like that, or if you have scissors handy, you can cut the strap. This thing moves rather slowly, but what you're going to do is you're going to aim it down, get your bolt ready. When it gets down to where your bolt, and it wants to pull that game on me, so when this happens, instead of guiding it, you're going to have to grab it before it gets out of control. Put your bolt through, pull your shock back till your bolt fits in it, and then rock it through to the other side. Take this and throw it in the trash. And then when you get that done, stuff your bolt back on. Now, if you want to tighten up your upper nut, you can, because you're going to tighten up your bottom nut. There is a torque spec for this. I don't know what it is. Even if I did, I wouldn't torque it to that value, because it's probably somewhere around 60 foot-pounds. And so I just say snug it. If you use an impact, maybe 1 or 2 ugga-duggas, since that seems to be a form of measurement in the impact world. Tighten up the bottom bolt first, like this. Get it nice and tight. Do the same thing on the top. Switch out your socket. If you decide to do the bed off option, take a note of whether or not you have any rubber insulators on your bed. Some trucks have them. My 89 has them. They're basically big long strips of rubber that run along the rail, and they do 2 things. They keep the bed from squeaking, because metal on metal does squeak, and it also prevents a fire, because your fuel pump, your fuel tank sits back there, and if you get too much movement on your bed, it could create a spark, and if there's vapors back there, you can set your truck on fire. This one doesn't appear to have any, because this is the first time the bed's been off since it was put on in 2001. So I don't have any insulators on this bed. However, it is an aluminum fiber, or not aluminum, it's a steel fiberglass bed, so I don't think it really needs them. But if you wanted to, if you've had problems with the bed making noises, you can get you some like bicycle tubes or old mud flaps or something, and cut them like little squares, and just kind of put some PL3 or something to glue it down to the frame. Just, you know, something like that, just to keep it from making noises. So that's it for this one. We were going to do the front shocks first and then the back shocks second, but we did this in reverse this time. Did the back shocks first, and now we're going to do the front shocks second. That's going to be in a different video. So if you like this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and everything. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. So those of you that have been here a long time, that enjoy these Ranger videos, especially when we do frame off like we're doing here, where we're doing a bed off type deal. If you like these, go ahead and give me an idea for what you want to see on the 1,000 episode, or the 1,000 subscriber episode, because we still got a lot to do on Project Rusty. We could do a Project Rusty video real easy. Matter of fact, I might save this one video I'm thinking about doing as the 1,000 subscriber one. When I looked at it this morning, we had 950 something subscribers. So we're almost there. So get your friends to subscribe. If they see something they like, they can go ahead and, you know, We do different cars all the time. We don't just do a list of different. I got one coming in on Thursday. We're going to do a video on that. We don't normally see those in the shop. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to wait. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up back here, because I got a new hose coming, and I'm not going to show you how that goes together, because it's just like every other hose. You take these two clamps off here, you take those two clamps off back there, you pull the hoses off, put new hoses on, and you're done. Basic stuff. So, and until next time, I'll see you on the front shocks.